Hello, welcome to the Jessie at Home Stitchopedia. In this Stitchopedia video, I am going to show you how to make a flat circle out of double crochet stitches. In this video, I am using Peaches and Cream yarn, which is worsted weight, and the color I am using is called Gumdrop, this variegated color. I'm only telling you this in case you've fallen in love with the yarn and want to get the same stuff. You know what it is. It's not necessary to use this yarn, this weight, to make a double crochet flat circle. What I am teaching you here is a technique. I'm teaching you the technique of how to make a flat circle in double crochet stitches. You can do this with whatever weight yarn and coordinating hook you want. Okay, obviously if you've made this 9 rounds in worsted weight and you make another one that's 9 rounds in a really thin lightweight yarn with a smaller needle, then your circle will be smaller. And if you make it the same 9 rounds but in a super chunky yarn with a big hook, then your circle will be larger. But your circle will always be a flat circle as long as you follow the techniques that I'm going to show you here. Okay? Oh, I'm also using, in case you want to know the hook size that I happen to be using, an H or US 8, which is 5 millimeters. So I'm going to put this little sample piece over here so you can see it as I go. And let's get started. As with pretty much any piece worked in the round, you're going to start off with a slip stitch and a slip knot, and then chain 4, join with a slip stitch to make a loop. And now, as with pretty much anything that I do in the round, I'm going to work my first round over top of the tail end, the beginning tail of my yarn. And the reason I'm doing that is as I work around and catch this in, when I'm all done and I'm weaving in my end, I can pull this tail really tightly and it will close the hole in the center of my piece. You see how this is closed nice and tightly? Sometimes when you're doing something round that's kind of got a granny pattern to it, it's got the little holes in it or decorative stitches and it's lacy, you don't mind that little hole that happens in the center. But when you're making something that's a solid circle like this, a lot of times you don't want the center hole. And to be honest, even when I make something that's lacy, I usually don't like the center hole. For some reason, the center hole just bugs me, which is why I always, pretty much always, do my first round worked over top of the tail. So when I weave in the end, I can pull it tight, close the hole, and then weave in the end. You do still need to weave in the end. Once you pull it tight, you can't just cut it because it will come out, it'll loosen, you'll be sad. So once you're done, you can pull it tight and then weave the end in. Now let's get going with round 1. We are going to start off with a chain 1 that is not going to count as our first double crochet. We're going to use a chain 1 to get our hook lifted up to where it needs to be to start our first double crochet. But we are not going to do the traditional chain 3, which counts as a first double crochet. Now I did my chain 1 to start, and I'm going to place 12 double crochets into my loop. Okay, so 1, 2, and you'll notice I'm working over the loop and over the yarn end. 3 and 12. And you notice I don't care if I'm yanking that hole open really big because I'm just going to and tighten this at the end. I'll pull it a couple more times when I tighten it at the end. It'll get nice and tight and I don't have to worry about if I yanked it into a huge gaping hole in the middle because I went over top of this and I can fix it in the end and it's all good. So now we're going to slip stitch to the top of the first double crochet. We're not slip stitching to the top of the chain 1. Okay, you see how it kind of got stretched out? That's great. It's going to hide really nicely. We're going to slip stitch the top of the first double crochet. And that is the end of round 1. There should be 12 stitches, 12 double crochets. There's a written pattern that goes along with this, and if you look at the end of every single round, it tells you how many stitches you should have in each round. And at the end of round 1, you should have 12. And so if you want to double check to make sure you got that slip stitch in the right place, count how many loops there are. Your slip stitch should come out of the 12th loop. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and look, my slip stitch is coming out of stitch number 12. So we're all good. Now round 2. Just as before, it starts with a chain 1, which does not count as a stitch. And now we are going to increase into every single stitch around. And to make an increase, you're just doing 2 double crochet into the same stitch, and that makes an increase. So we had 12. We're going to place 2 double crochet into each of the 12 stitches we already have. And you're placing that first set of 2 double crochet in the same exact stitch that you slip stitched into. 1, 2, and then 2 into the next. 1, 2, 2 double crochet into each stitch around. We started with 12. If we put 2 into each of them, that means we've increased 12. 12 plus 12 is 24. That's how many stitches we'll have in the end. I have gone all the way around. I've placed 2 double crochet into every single stitch around, making a total of 24 double crochet. I'm now going to slip stitch into the top of the first double crochet that I made. And if I wanted to, again, I could count 1, 2 all the way around and find that this is stitch 24, and that's where I joined my slip stitch. And that's round 2. Now in round 3, you're going to begin to see the pattern of how this works. There's a repeating pattern that happens. Every single round is increased by 12 stitches. So every single round has 12 increases in it. And like I said, it increases when you place 2 double crochet into the same stitch. In this round, we had 12 stitches, so we put 2 double crochet into each of them, making 12 increases. Now, in the next round, we are going to make an increase, and then we're going to double crochet into the next stitch. And then an increase and double crochet into the next stitch. So there'll be 1 standalone double crochet in between every single increase. And let me show you how to do that. We're going to again do our chain 1 to get started, and then we're going to place an increase right away. So 2 double crochet into that same stitch that we joined into. 1, 2, and then 1 standalone double crochet. So double crochet into the next stitch, and then an increase, 2 double crochet into the next stitch, 1 standalone, so double crochet into the next stitch, an increase, so 2 double crochet into the next, a standalone, double crochet into the next stitch once. And you're going to keep doing that all the way around this circle, and you'll end with a standalone stitch with the 1 double crochet into the next. I have just completed my 12th increase, and now there is 1 stitch left, which is perfect because the round ends with the 2 double crochet into the next stitch and then 1 double crochet into the next, into the last stitch. So there's my 1 double crochet into the last stitch, and now I'm going to join to the top of the first double crochet made to join my round. Use the slip stitch, top of the first double crochet made to join the round. So now we're going to think about round 4. In round 3, we had an increase and then 1 standalone stitch, and then an increase and then 1 standalone stitch. So in round 4, we're going to have an increase and 2 standalones. So 2 double crochet into 1 stitch, and then double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. 2 double crochet into the next stitch, and then double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So you're having 2 standalone stitches in between every single increase. Now, what I do differently on these even number rows is I stagger the increases. And the reason I do that is it keeps me from getting corners. It makes my circle more circular. If you stack every single increase on top of each other, as the circle starts to grow, you will get corners. The first few rounds it'll look pretty circular, but as you go you will start to see 12 corners. And if you don't want a piece that has 12 corners and 12 straight edges, you want a piece that looks more circular, that's when you want to stagger your seams. Stagger your increases. So what I do is when I'm on my even numbered rounds, which has an even number of stitches in between my increases, I break the first set of those stitches in half. So I have 2 double crochets in between every single increase. I have 2 individual double crochets in between every single increase. Half of 2 is 1. So I'm going to start my round by placing half of my standalone stitches, which in this case is 1. So I'm going to chain 1, and you'll see I'll do a couple more rows, so you'll see that again. I'm going to do my chain 1, and then I'm going to double crochet into that same stitch once. So that's half of my standalone stitches, just one of them. And now I put an increase. So 2 double crochets into the next stitch. And now until I work my last increase, I'm going to go ahead and place both of my standalone stitches. So I did my increase, 2 double crochets into this stitch, and then I'm going to place a double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, and then 2 double crochet into the next stitch, which is my increase, and then double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, my 2 standalones. Then my increase, which is 2 double crochet into the next stitch, and then my 2 standalones, double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And I'm going to continue in that manner all the way around until I've worked my last increase. I have worked my last increase, and now there is 1 stitch left, which is perfect, because remember how we have 2 standalones in between every single increase? Well, we started off with just 1 of those standalones, and then we did an increase, which means we still need 1 more in between these 2 increases, right? So we're going to place our last 1 standalone right there, slip stitch to the top of the first double crochet made, and we have an increase, and 2 standalones in between them. So that is the end of round 4. And now let's talk about round 5. In round 4, we had 2 standalones in between each of our increases. So in round 5, we're going to have 3 standalones, which means we'll have an increase, or 2 double crochet into the same stitch, and then 3 standalones, or double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. Because 3 is an odd number, we start off this round with an increase. Every time you have an odd number of standalone stitches, you start off with an increase. So I'm going to chain 1 and then place 2 double crochet into that same stitch that we slip stitched into to join. That's our increase. And then we're going to place our 3 standalones, which is double crochet once into each of the next 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3. And then an increase, or 2 double crochet into the next stitch. 1, 2, 3 standalones, double crochet once into each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And then an increase, 2 double crochet into the next stitch. 1, 2, and then the 3 standalones, 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And you're going to continue in this manner all the way around, and you're going to end with your 3 standalone stitches. I have finished the 3rd of my 3 standalone stitches here. There have been 12 increases all the way around, and now I'm going to end this round by slip stitching to the top of the first double crochet that I made. And that is the end of round 5. Now, round 5, I had the increase and then 3 individual stitches between that, and then an increase and 3 individuals, increase, 3 individuals. So for round 6, we're going to have an increase and 4 individuals, an increase and 4 individuals. 4 is an even number. So to start off, we're going to place half of those, 2. Okay? There are 4 individual stitches in between each increase. It's an even number, so we're going to split it in half and start off with 2 of them. So we chain 1 to start, and we put 1 double crochet into that stitch. We're starting off with 2 individual stitches, so now we're going to place 1 double crochet into the next stitch. And there's my 2 individual stitches, and now I'm going to double crochet. And now, in this round, there are 4 stitches in between every single increase. 4 individual stitches in between every single increase. So now I'm going to double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I'm going to make an increase. 2 double crochet into the next stitch. 1, 2, and then my 4 standalones. So 1 double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an increase. 2 double crochets into the next stitch. 1, 2, and then my 4 standalones. So double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to continue in this manner until you've made all 12 of your increases. So until you have all of your increases done, and when you have your last increase done, there should be 2 stitches left to work into. I have worked my last increase. There are 12 increases on this round, and there are 2 stitches left. There are 4 individual stitches in between every single increase. So here is the first increase we did, and we placed 2 stitches before that, which means we still need 2 more in order to make the 4 in between these 2 increases. So do you see what we did? We just split up the individual stitches. That's why you do this on the even number rows, because they divide in half really nicely, which means now we just place our last 2 double crochet, and then we slip stitch to the top of the first double crochet made in this round, and you have your increase and your 4 standalone stitches in between them. And you see we're making this nice flat circle. And you might be saying that this isn't exactly flat. It's kind of curling up. Don't worry about that. As you keep going, this round will lay down when you put the next round on, but even more than that, don't worry about that because you can block it, okay? This one was pretty round to begin with as well. It was curling up at the ends when I finished it also. And all I did was I turned it over. You turn it over so that the wrong side is facing up. If you have something that's kind of large, you do need to pin it down into shape. Okay, and this one I didn't pin it down, but this is kind of about as big as you want to go before you start ignoring the whole pinning thing. You know, once it gets much bigger than that, you really do need to start pinning things down. You want to make sure to use some sort of stainless steel, like a stainless steel T-pin, something that's not going to rust, because the last thing you want is to make something and then have rust spots in it from when you did your steaming, when you did your blocking. So you turn it over, and then what you do once it's turned over and pinned down if you're pinning it, is you hit it with steam. You want to do this after it's finished. So you'd want to have tightened up the hole in your center. You see how nicely that closed? And woven in that end. You want to have totally finished this off and woven in that end. All the ends woven in and everything. Completely finished. And then you lay it flat. You flatten it out as much as you can, or you pin it down if you're going to pin it down. And then you hit it with steam. If you have a steam iron, you hover over top with the steam going. You do not want to place the iron on top of it. You'll really ruin the stitches. If you're using a man-made fiber, it's entirely possible that you will melt your yarn. So don't, and even if you're not, even if you're using a natural fiber or something that's not going to melt, something that can take a lot of abuse and heat, it's still going to mess up your stitches. So you don't really want to place the iron on top. You want to hit it with a steam. If you have a steamer, use that. Use your steamer. Get this nice and steamed. And what I did here with this one was I steamed it, and then I patted it, and then I steamed it again and patted it, and you might need to do that 2, 3, 4 times depending on how much something needs to be blocked. This is cotton, so it blocks really nicely. It's not a really lots of different angles kind of piece or tight stitches and loose stitches. you know, really only needed 1 or 2 steaming and steam press, steam pat. Don't pull, don't yank. If you need to give it a little bit of adjustment, especially if you haven't pinned or in between the pins, that's fine, but don't like yank. Okay, just pat, do small adjustments, steam it, pat, small adjustments, steam it, pat, however much you need to do until it's where you want it, and then leave it. It needs to be completely dry and completely cool. I really recommend leaving it for 24 hours. Okay, and then once it's all done, you take it off, you take out the pins and you turn it over, and it is the shape you want it to be. All right, here you have your double crochet circle, and you're just going to continue. If you want to make more rows, you keep going. This one had 4 standalone stitches in between, so the next round will have 5. 5 is an odd number, so you'll start off with your chain 1 and your increase, and then 5 standalones. Increase, 5 standalones. Increase, 5 standalones. The next round after 5 is 6. So you have 6 standalones. 6 is an even number, so you want to start off with just half of those, so that's 3. So you'll chain 1, and then you'll do 3 standalone stitches and an increase, and then the 6 and an increase, 6 and an increase, 6 and an increase, until you have all 6 increases done. There'll be 3 stitches left. You started with 3, and then you end with 3 standalone stitches, and that still makes your 6. Okay? And you're going to keep on going in that manner, and can be as large as you want. And like I said at the beginning, whatever yarn you're using, whatever hook you're using, it's simply the recipe or the technique of making this double crochet flat circle, 12 increases in every single round, 12 evenly spaced increases in every single round, will give you a double crochet circle. And even if you have a stitch pattern going on inside of here, that's based on that's the size of a double crochet. You know, you're skipping every other one and putting a chain in its place, whatever you're doing, that will give you your flat circle that you are looking for. All right, I hope you found that helpful.